SMQBs115. And then there were 2 left, tattooless. Got a majority of the SMQBs are committed at this point.
You got
to pay your debts.
The pressure is building on you, Pope.
Yeah.
Got to pay your debts.
My favorite was
zero
when
pressure.
I said, Milk, you're next. And he said, isn't Pope next? So Milk is waiting on you, Pope. I don't think you should let the guy down. I mean,
Show
he's
a little
having a rough
leadership
day right now. He's having a rough day as it is, moving.
Milk's skin is so light. If they tried to tattoo it, it'd go right through to his bone.
That's probably true, actually.
He'd probably gain weight from the ink.
Might be the best thing the little guy could do, right? Put a little weight on. So think of how small that tattoo would have to be. Oh, God. All right, how's everybody doing? House, you're having a good week, aren't you?
Terrible.
Oh,
terrible.
Oh.
Your team's
you know the worst? You know the worst part? There's so many bad things to the Sixers loss. So many bad things. You know the worst of it all is now that our comparison in sports is the Dallas Cowboys. Do you understand how bad that is? Yeah, that we always make the playoffs but never get a championship because it's about the same amount of time.
You're talking about the Sixers, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's brutal. It is brutal. Brutal.
When was the last time you hung a banner?
Sixers? 83.
Was Milk alive?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that Bison was.
83?
Oh, Bison. Yeah, Bison was alive.
He was alive.
I was alive. I was
still look so young.
Milk was alive.
Well, listen, the good thing about the Sixers going out now is that, Josh Harris can fire Doc and move on to focusing on the Commanders.
I hope Doc becomes the coach of the Commanders.
Maybe he'll
that
do
would be
better.
Interesting.
Maybe he would. He probably couldn't do worse than some of the coaches we've had over the years. And at least he would get us to the playoffs.
Well, right. If he gets you deep into 10 playoffs and then has the same record that he does as in Game 7s, you'd be happy.
Yeah, right. That's right. So,
but this wasn't about Game 7; it was about Game 6.
Well,
let's very true.
I mean, look, let's jump into it, right? Let's get into the NBA playoffs, and we're down to 4 now. So, Pope, go ahead. Let's just take it away on where you were right there with Game 6 and the.
Well, I mean, they had their opportunity in Game 6. They won Game 5. That amazing shot by Harden, and they had every and with Tatum having a historically horrible night. But at one point, I think he was 1 for 14 from the floor. Their guys, they didn't step up, and that was the game they had to take care of business. They could not go back to Game 7 in Boston, and they failed. I mean, Toby, what happened?
They shrunk. They shrunk in the last, other than a period of the first quarter in Game 7, their offensive prowess and strategy completely disappeared. I mean, it really became, everybody knows the Sixers are a pick and roll team, that everything's Harden, Embiid, but Boston is a very good defensive team. And when you take a very good defensive team and you tell that team you only have to defend 2 players, not all 5, the game gets a lot easier. That's what happened at the end of Game 6. That's what happened for most of Game 7. And look, we can talk for forever about the Sixers' flaws and failures, but I do give credit to the person responsible for the Boston being in the Eastern Conference Finals. One person won, Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum went off at the end of Game 6, and he had a historic performance in Game 7. You got to tip your hat to him. I mean, I do think there's been a lot of talk. Most of the talk is Embiid and Harden looking lazy and disappearing and not just showing the body language that you should have in a Game 7 and just a lot of that stuff. But I'm sure you guys saw in game 7, Harden went up to go make a shot and lost control of the ball. And when he lost control of the ball, his arms went flailing. And as his arms were flailing, it caught Jaylen Brown in the mouth and
in the nose. Gave him a bloody nose.
Bloody no, actually, I think it was a bloody lip, but it doesn't matter. It bloodied his face. And the Sixers were up 6. And Boston got a flagrant one with 2 free throws in the possession, cut it to 2, shifted the whole momentum. There was a long pause. It was the equivalent of Boston having like 2 timeouts to get their shit together. And I don't think the way Tatum was shooting that we were ever going to win game 7, but that for me, and I think most Sixers fans, was the turning point of yesterday.
Why in the world it was Embiid guarding Tatum for most of game 7?
Well, two reasons. We've criticized Mazzulla a lot, the Boston coach, but he made a very smart switch in 6, which is to put
Rob Williams.
Rob Williams on the floor at the same time as Horford and sit Derek White, which forced, we don't really have 2 big guys to defend. And it forced Embiid somewhere, with PJ Tucker mostly the other place. But I agree, it should have been Toby. It should have been Tobias Harris on Tatum at all times. I think they really thought that the game plan was to take away the perimeter for Boston, and they thought Embiid's long arms might have a chance to do that on Tatum's 3-point shooting. It obviously didn't.
So here's my other question. There's almost nobody in the league who can defend Embiid in the paint. So why don't you ever post him up? Why is it always pick and roll?
That's where I blame Doc Rivers. That's why I believe we need a new coach. The guy has elite skills as a center, probably some of the best skills as a center since Shaq. And you just misuse him. You underuse him. The guy should be posting up. It's what Shaq talks about. It's what Charles Barkley talks about. And Doc won't do it. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep. Mazzulla, until game 7, I was thinking to myself, this guy could be the first guy in the history of the NBA to take his team to a championship, win the championship, and get fired for being a horrible coach. Because I swear that Marcus Smart and Horford were coaching the team for most of game 6. I think Mazzulla was just scared, didn't know what to do, doesn't know how to make substitutions, doesn't know how to call timeouts. And I think those 2 vets stepped up and sort of helped him along the way. And he did make some good moves going into game 7, but he really is just, they're winning despite him.
Yeah. Well, they're more than a streaky perimeter shooting team. If they get on in threes, and there's so many of them. I mean, Derek White can hit him, Malcolm Brogdon can hit him, Marcus Smart can hit him, Al Horford can hit him, Jason Tatum can hit him. They all are good 3-point shooters. And I don't think Miami's got enough defenders to defend the 3-point line.
Yeah, and you haven't even mentioned Jaylen Brown.
And Jaylen Brown, my God, Jaylen Brown, how did I forget that one?
So House, at the 11:37 mark in the 3rd quarter, Tobias Harris made a 3-point jumper to tie the game.
55.
55. 10 minutes later, with a minute and change left, they're down 83-50. A 28-3.
How could they go from 55 to
gut
50?
Punch.
83
to 58. Sorry, 28-3 gut punch. How in today's NBA in the game 7? How could something like that happen? Is that coaching? Is it playing?
Well, that's what I was going to ask too. I mean, do you blame the coach for that?
It's everything. It's everything. What was on the floor wasn't working. You bring in something different off the bench. You run a different offensive set. They stopped defending the perimeter. They had an outstanding first half defensively because they really were disciplined to defend the perimeter against Boston. They stopped defending the perimeter and they stayed with the pick and roll. We went ice cold from 3 and they could not miss from 3. They could not. But it was just the most putrid, horrible meltdown. No team since really they started the shot clock has ever scored as low as 10 points in a quarter in playoff basketball, let alone a game 7. It was inexcusable. And, a lot of folks don't know where to turn. I think Toby's gone. He's on a max contract. He's never been a max player. Nice player, not a max player. Harden apparently wants to go back to Houston. And frankly, despite a couple game heroics in 1 and 4, I think he's really lost a step. He's certainly not the shooter he once was. He turns over the ball way too much compared to previously. And he's a poor defender. And, so you're really left with Embiid and Maxey and some role players, some bench players. They're going to need more pieces.
Sounds like a rebuilding project. Surely that's not what they want to do at this time.
They won't rebuild, but they're going to have to retool and find some vets that fit well.
There's the rumor is that they're interested in the point guard from the Blazers, Damian
Lillard.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody wants him.
Who
I don't know if
wouldn't
this
be?
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do
I
the
thought,
Knicks, right?
I thought a major turning point in game 7 was when Horford finally made a 3. Remember, he rattled it
Sure.
in and
Yep.
it finally broke the seal. And all of a sudden these guys did start raining in threes, but they were cold for a couple of games from 3, especially him.
But how,
So
the thing is though, is, go back to this rebuild or retool thing. I mean, you can literally retool mid-season, right? I mean, look at the Lakers.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a guy like Embiid, the MVP, then you ought to be able to retool mid-season.
But they don't have the draft picks to deal like the Lakers did.
Well, here's where the real pain point comes that Sixers fans are asking themselves today. To your question, can you retool mid-season and still win if your lead guy is Embiid? Does he have the heart and the will of a champion? I look around these playoffs. I see Jimmy Butler go off. I see Jokic go off. I see LeBron go off. I see Tatum go off in the games that matter most. And what's really painful right now is this guy who's beloved in the city, who we were ready to etch into Rushmore here after he won the MVP. What he did at the end of game 6, where he didn't touch the ball for about 4 minutes, and in most of game 7, it makes you wonder, does he have just that gumption, the moxie to get you a win? It's no mistake the 4 leaders that are left in the NBA playoffs right now.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
And-
Embiid's post-game presser wasn't very impressive, was it?
Not really. They did take that one quote out of
That
context.
was out of context. I
Yeah.
felt bad for him.
The one question and answer that I thought was telling was when Harden was asked about, do you want to see Doc come back? And he said, Doc's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Harden, I think, you alluded to the stat, Rooster, about going to 10 game 7s and losing 7 of them, I think is the number, something like that. I mean, it's
6.
the worst.
Yeah.
It's the worst in NBA. I don't know how you keep that coach, even if the players like him. I mean, what more evidence do you need that this guy is not going to work with this team? And you've got, which I hope we'll talk about, you've got a treasure trove of available coaches right now.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's jump into
That's
that
true.
actually, because the NBA, is a win now. What have you done for me lately sort of league, other than for Doc, it seems like, who keeps getting chances. But you've got coaches who are good coaches who are all available now, right? Nick Nurse was out in Toronto, Budenholzer out in Milwaukee. Monty Williams from Phoenix, right? And so, and you got to assume that Doc is going to be available for someone. Question is, will he get another job at this point? But man, this is really like, these guys had good seasons, but, and are respected coaches. But if you can't win in the playoffs, teams move on.
Well, in Doc's defense, though, in order to lose 6 out of 10 game 7s, he had to get to 10 game 7s. And there are lots of teams in the league who would be really happy with that. So he's going to get a job for a mediocre team without a problem.
I just I cannot wrap my head around some of these firings. I mean, Budenholzer just got them a championship a couple years ago. Nick Nurse got them a championship 4 years ago.
Yep.
And is playing with Pascal Siakam and Victor Anunoby. I mean, and just garbage. And Monty Williams just got like a new team where his star got playing for him 20, 30 games ago and had the team in the finals last year. Like, seriously, what do you want out of these people?
Monty Williams has been with them 4 years and was coach of the year twice. Coach Bud, 5 years with a 271 and 120 record. First championship for Milwaukee since 1971. Maybe the problem is with the GM, who for a couple of years hadn't seen the writing on the wall with the supporting, team members behind Giannis. I agree with you. Nick Nurse, 10 seasons with the team, head coach since 2018, where he went 53 and 19 and won the championship for a team that had one star, basically one superstar. Maybe things just got a little stale with Nick Nurse. I do not understand Bud or Monty Williams, except for the fact that Monty did not do a great job assimilating KD. And they've got this new owner who's got new owner-itis, right? He's just making moves quickly without a lot
available. I mean, I there's this talk that I don't know what this love affair is with Tyronn Lue. I really don't get it, but apparently that's who the Suns want. And maybe that's a Durant thing. I don't get it, but
well, is that part of the problem right there? Who's making these decisions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are they the GMs or are they the star players?
To me, the team that will be interesting to see who they get as a coach is the Pistons. They had a coach, kind of a placeholder
Didn't
coach.
see that coming.
Well,
Didn't
Dwayne
see that
Casey.
coming. The Pistons, the most
Right.
interesting story of the offseason.
Yeah.
Well, they've got Jaden. They've got Killian Hayes. They've got Jalen Duran. They've got Cade. They just picked up Wiseman from the Warriors, and they're in the top running of. They're one of 3 or 4 teams with 14% chance to get the first pick in the draft. I mean, that would be a hell of a team to coach, that kind of young talent.
Speaking of that, we got the lottery tomorrow night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll find out.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny that you said that because I was just looking at that the other day. I felt like this year's NBA All Rookie team was kind of interesting because on the second and third teams, Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey both made the second team, and I think on Houston they had 2 players on the third team. So there are some young teams that have some really, really good talent that need a good coach. I hadn't really thought about that Detroit was without a coach. Yeah, Houston put both Tari Easton and Jabari Smith on the second team. So you got some young teams with some very good players.
So
You had Victor Wembanyama to that, and oh my God,
Yeah.
What is Harden's contract situation?
He can opt out. So he's got a player option to opt out, and he may opt out and go to Houston, which is
I don't nothing.
Get nothing.
He looked like a guy who was afraid to fail in Game 6 and 7 to me.
Yeah, I don't. They just try to do too much, particularly Harden. He tries to do too much, and the team just does not move the ball around. They're very stagnant offense with the pick and roll. But going back to that Victor Wembanyama thing, I mean, everybody has him as the next one. It's the next coming of the great player coming in. And we just finished a 10-year process. It was started by Sam Hinkie. Sixers were clearly losing on purpose for a while, for a few consecutive years, that led to Joel Embiid, what was thought to be Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons. they were tanking to build with a roster of the best when you're almost at the NBA record, won only 10 games. So my question to you guys is, in your sports, is it worth it? Is tanking worth it to go for it, even if you don't get there? Because right now, that's, again, a lot of angst in Philadelphia. Was all this process worth it? If we couldn't win game 6 at home, and we're going to lose Harden, Simmons is gone, and Toby's gone, and we're left with Embiid and Maxey, who didn't come about by the process anyway. So was it all worth it?
I think there's some significant risks in it that are embodied by what you went through in Philly. And also, if you think back to 2007, when the Portland Trail Blazers had the first pick, and they were debating between Greg Oden and KD. Remember that?
Man.
Greg Oden or KD? They had billboards up all over, you know, and they made the wrong choice. They had no way of knowing. Greg Oden got hurt. Then he hurt his, he had the foot problem that all big men had, and he was a potentially great player who just didn't make it. And so my point is, you've got the risk of the player not working out. You got the risk. You have to have a great GM to get it right, and you have to have a great coach. And when Philly tanked for 3 straight years and then picked Jahlil Okafor and Nerlens Noel and those guys, and then they what was the pick that wound up getting the Celtics, Jason Tatum, they traded out of to take Fultz over. When they made that pick, they could have picked Lonzo Ball or De'Aaron Fox, and they took Fultz. Now, I remember myself saying, that is a great pick. Fultz is going to be awesome. And again, how do you know? It's just a huge flip of the coin with some of these guys. He's recently started to play well for Orlando, but was a complete bust. And it's often hard to predict these busts. It really is. So it's a huge risk, man. And you're building a culture of losing for 3 years. You're giving up, you're using all these picks, and if they don't work out, what do you have? I think it's a gigantic risk, and it takes a lot of guts to do it. I wouldn't be so quick to give up, though. I mean, I really do think Embiid and Maxey are a great core.
Yeah,
for a team.
I mean, they'll put you in the playoffs every year, but you got to get. See, they had the right idea with PJ Tucker, but you need a few more PJ Tuckers every year. There's somebody like that. I think we're seeing some of those players on the Lakers this year. You got to get that right mix and figure out what it is. It does take a great GM. I hope Daryl Morey's it. I mean, obviously built some great teams previously before the Sixers, but we'll see. I don't know. I mean,
but again, it's the NBA is so different too, right? I mean, the NBA to me it's such a unique league in the sense that the way they build these teams, like guys move around and get big contracts. They move around every summer, and then they get bought out, and the trade debt. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just find it so interesting the way it works. Is there any other league where teams get remade mid-season as much as they do in the NBA?
Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
No, because it's such a small. It only takes a couple players to totally remake a team to be a championship.
That's right, and that's why the tanking thing is a little harder to justify in the NBA, I think.
Plus, don't forget when we had Jerry Bembry on the show, and he explained how the players have more power in the NBA than they do in any other league. So you can get a guy like LeBron saying, "Hey, I want 2 more stars to come with me, and let's all join the Heat or the Lakers," and that happens. That doesn't happen in football, baseball, or hockey.
But the other part of that is, is that detrimental? I mean, going back to the question, and I think it came up a little earlier, you've got some of these players who are calling the shots, and maybe they don't know what the heck they're talking about, right? I mean, bring Harden in, bring bring whoever in. I want to play with this. And then at the end of the day, the team doesn't advance. Whose fault is that? Or bring Durant in. I mean, by the way, would you ever like trade or try and pick up Durant or Kyrie Irving at this point to think it's going to help your team win a championship? I wouldn't.
Durant, I
Harden?
would.
Durant would.
I don't know.
Shit, put Durant with the Mavs and Luka right now. I think we could use that.
Well,
All right,
the only,
let's-
the only
But
time
then,
he's
not,
ever
but not
won
if you have to
anything
give
was
up,
with
not
Golden
if you have to
State.
give up every other player on the team like the Suns did.
Well, we have a bunch of worthless spares on our team right now. Happy to give them all up.
Let's say football though. Like, all right, the Commanders might have a rough go of it for the next couple of years. Let's just say that they might. I mean, they're
Who?
not the Commanders.
Oh, the Commanders.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't think they're prohibitive favorites for the Super Bowl this year. Let's say that Caleb Williams is the closest comparison to Patrick Mahomes. Would you say, hey, I'm okay with us going 1-16 next year if that gives us a chance to get Caleb Williams?
I mean, I think so first of all, if you start out, 0-8, then it's like, yeah, don't win any more games, right? I mean, at this point, like, okay, guys, do the best thing and don't win any more games because you're not going anywhere. But to start a season thinking, we're really just hoping to finish at the bottom. I mean, that's a little different to me. And football, I don't know, man.
Rule of
Just
thumb for any GM in football: never start out a season tanking
Yeah.
with the goal of getting a USC quarterback or an Ohio State quarterback.
Yeah.
It doesn't
I agree.
work.
I think it's too hard. I mean, in NFL, I mean, you just don't have any of these quarterbacks are all hit or miss. They're all just such hit or miss.
I mean, I remember back when I was in college and the Cowboys arguably tanked to get Troy Aikman. It paid off for them, but that was a different time.
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah.
he was
Now, it looks-
prohibitively the number one quarterback in the draft and was a franchise quarterback. Everybody knew that.
But that all those guys, but that could have gone the other way too. I mean, you say everybody knew that he was a franchise quarterback until he wasn't, right? I mean, because how many guys did we know were going to be franchise quarterbacks until they started playing in the NFL, and then they weren't? Another good example is the Nats, quite honestly. I mean, they traded away the whole team, right? And they traded away guys who they had control of for another 2 years, not just the rest of the season. And, was that a good move? Man, I mean, I hated those moves. At least it looks like right now, the guys that they brought in look to be like they actually might be hits. They might have hit on these big names that they traded for right now. So, I think it depends on the sport. Losing sucks. It sucks to go to a game. And last year for the Nats, there was nothing intriguing to watch. Like, you didn't even know who the players were. There was nothing interesting. At least this season, you have young guys playing pretty well, and they're kind of fun to root for and watch. But losing takes a toll. It takes a toll.
Yeah, I although I have to say, with the Yankees, they have the deepest minor league prospects they've had in many years. I'd rather see them not make the playoffs this year and start trading away all those guys like Cashman historically does for old, overpaid, mediocre talent. I mean, who the hell needs Josh Donaldson on their team as their starting third baseman? That's a typical Brian Cashman move. And I would rather see every one of these young guys continue to play and develop at this point.
Yeah,
when's the last time that a major league baseball team tanked to get a number one prospect that paid off?
Never. I can't think of it ever.
Or were they actually tanked? I think like I said, I think baseball's a little different. I mean, the Nats drafted Harper and Strasburg in back-to-back years, and those were pretty good, turned out to be pretty good picks. But did they intentionally tank? They just didn't have anybody on the team. I don't know that they intentionally tanked. I guess the better comparison is just selling off your team, right? I mean, the Marlins have done it.
Yep.
The
I mean,
Rays
that's
have done it
arguably
from
a
time
form.
to time.
That's
The
arguably a
Pirates.
form of tanking.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think the Nats might show, although at the time the Nats did it, they weren't playing well. They weren't going anywhere. So, I think that may turn out to be a case where it did work out really well for them.
I think,
Time will tell.
we had a great conversation once on this pod about, we took our pick between owner or coach or GM. I think a lot of folks had coach, and I said GM, and it goes back to Rooster's point earlier on the pod. If you're not, you don't have to tank if you have a smart GM that knows how to constantly retool, rebuild, add in these pieces here and there. There's a lot of teams that across all sports that have sustained success. And the reason they have sustained success, yeah, they might have one star, but they keep finding the right pieces to support that star. And, you look at LeBron. Okay, yes, you can say AD is a superstar too, but it used to be the NBA, you needed 3 stars. You definitely don't have 3 stars in LA. I don't really think you have 3 stars in Denver. You definitely don't have 3 stars in Miami
or Boston.
Or really Boston. So you've got good pieces. You're finding teams that work to support these teams. And that's the responsibility of GM. Daryl Moore's gonna have to figure it out.
On this tanking topic, I wish we had Moose Jaw on today, because for some reason, I think the safest league in which to tank and get the number 1 pick is the NHL. Like, the Blackhawks getting Connor Bedard. These guys all tend to work out, these number 1 picks over the years. And I wonder why that is.
That's true, but the leagues are doing anti-tanking things, which means that it's, whatever is with all the ping pong balls, it's not automatic that you get the 1 pick. I don't think the Blackhawks were the odds on. I think they were the number 2 to get it. And they drew the inside straight to get to 1. So tanking doesn't always work in some leagues.
That's true. So who do we like in the conference finals?
Oh, I don't know how you can go against Boston right now. I mean, even if they get Hero back, and even if Jimmy is a hero, I think it's going to be Boston. And I don't know. I'm very intrigued by this West series. I think LeBron and AD are hungry. They figured out the pieces around them. I think they're going to shock them. I think you're going to have that Celtics-Lakers final.
That would be something.
I got Nuggets taking care of the Lakers. I think the Lakers are going to run out of gas. I got Nuggets 4-1 in that series.
4-1, really? That's interesting. I mean,
4-1, and I actually have the Heat beating the Celtics. There's something magical about that team this year.
Wow. Huh.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think the Heat can beat the Celtics. I think, if you saw how the Celtics struggled against the Sixers, it was when the Sixers packed the paint to cut off drives to the hoop, and Celtics were cold from outside. The Heat cannot do that inside. They just don't have the beef to do that.
Something about Spoelstra, man.
Well, I was going to say, we spent a good amount of time talking about how the Celtics coach may get fired after going to the finals.
Yeah.
And Spoelstra is probably one of the best coaches in the NBA. So
top 3, I would say.
That
best coach remaining in the playoffs. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
That's what I got. A Heat Nuggets final.
Wow.
I do think the Celtics win it though. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, is AD going to cover the Joker? Is he going to defend? Because that might be one of the only guys who can shut him down.
You can't defend him on the perimeter. Joker's dangerous from out there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Joker is probably the best player in that series, and is probably too much for the Lakers. But I don't know. It's hard to count LeBron out.
So you got.
I said what I said.
Thing on the West.
I said what I said. It was clear as day, clear as day.
It could
Yeah,
land
right.
on either side of the coin.
Yes, you feel strongly both ways.
Yes, that's damn right.
Celtics Nuggets.
All right.
right.
Well, when do these start? They don't start tonight?
Tomorrow.
right? Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do they both start tomorrow?
No, Wednesday's the East.
Lakers Nuggets. They're going to go alternating days.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. Okay. All right. Will be fun. Anything else on NBA? No? Anybody got someone they want to punch?
I
Do it,
I don't.
Rooster. Do
I
it.
have one. I don't know whether to punch this guy or
Hug
pray
him.
pray for him. Honestly, Ja Morant. He comes off of an 8-game suspension for 3 incidents involving a gun or violence. Professes to understand how he needs to mature and get help and seek forgiveness and the whole bit. And he signed this huge rookie max extension worth about $192 million over 5 years, and would have gone up another $40 million had he just made the All NBA team for the second season in a row. And he didn't make it. And we all know why he didn't make it. Who's going to vote for him after all that nonsense? So just a few days later, what does he do? He releases his buddy, the same buddy who, by the way, was with him at the Pacers game and caused a stir on the court, and then got banned from the Memphis arena after that, and then was in the car where the Pacers alleged that somebody pointed a laser gun at their bus with Morant in the car. This same guy decides that it would be a funny thing to do to do an Instagram live video of Ja with a gun in the car, and they post it this weekend. I mean, come on, Ja's not a stupid person. He's an intelligent guy. He must be self-destructive or I don't know what, but he needs some help, man. And the league has been pretty frickin' forgiving of this guy. I think he's close to the end of the rope. I was listening to Keyshawn Johnson this morning, and Key was saying this is serious business because this is a guy who did not grow up, in the real hard knock life of.
Hear
me?
Now we do.
Now we do.
Yeah, but it's like hell bent on being seen as one of these gangbangers, and to the point where real gang members are getting pissed off at him. So it's getting to be dangerous. He refuses security because he absolutely doesn't want it. He'd rather be the guy flashing the gun. He's about to. I think he's about to flame out of the league because of this behavior. And I'm wondering where in the hell are his parents, who were perfectly happy to show up at every game in the playoffs a year ago, and the dad was getting all the pub. Where they need to step in. This guy's still obviously got the maturity level of a 16-year-old, and I think he needs to take a sabbatical from the NBA for a year and get his shit together, because otherwise his career may be over. And if he's that bullheaded and refuses to do it, then he needs a punch.
There's so many things that are combining here. There's the gun culture, and then this Instagram, TikTok, look at me, influencer culture that's all coming together.
And gang culture.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's not
I guess
new,
so.
though. That's not new.
I mean,
they're all.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, that they're all sort of coming together here, and it's really a nasty intersection. And I don't, I don't get the gun culture personally. And when I say gun culture, I'm not even talking about hunting and sporting, that sort of stuff. I mean, that's a different conversation. But the handgun, toughness sort of thing, and then I truthfully, I don't even understand the Instagram, the influencer look at me culture either.
God, I hate that.
That's I know. So there's a lot going on here, but one comparison, and it's not, it's not spot on. I'm gonna make the comparison and tell you why it isn't really spot on, is Allen Iverson. And I think Rooster, you made the point that Keyshawn was saying that Ja didn't grow up in the tough neighborhoods and with the gangs. Well, Iverson did. And he always had that mark on him throughout his career, even though he generally didn't get in any trouble. Now, he definitely had some issues with hanger-oners. I think he got caught with weed in the car at one point when you weren't supposed to have weed. But, it probably cost Iverson money in the long run. Now, he was an MVP, he was a superstar, and he showed up for every game. But he never, I don't think he did anything that got himself suspended where he was not useful to his team.
Right.
But this is going to be a double-digit suspension for him. And at some point, teams are going to say, we can't count on you to be on the court.
I think it's going to be an indefinite suspension until he proves that what's the one thing this guy couldn't do after the first suspension?
What he did.
Post a video of him with a gun. That's the only thing he had to absolutely avoid. And he did it immediately after they get knocked out of the playoffs. I mean, my God.
Now, isn't part of the inquiry when that video was actually shot?
Doesn't matter. He posted it this weekend.
I understand.
Simply
It's
about
poor
a lack.
judgment.
In addition to poor judgment, it's a lack of humility. That's what John needs. He needs a big IV infusion of humility to say, like, I was caught with a gun. I'm in trouble. I'm going to have some humble pie. He's doing the opposite on purpose to say, oh, I can't be touched. I'm immortal. Yeah, I got caught with a gun once, but look, I'll post it again. I can't be touched. That's just someone who lacks humility. And the thing is with Iverson, it's painful to watch some of the stuff with Ja because of the Iverson history that we saw here. I mean, what was so painful to watch is how Iverson's money went away because all these hangers on the posse, the famous Iverson posse, they took all his money. He spent it on a bunch of things and he spent it on his friends. He seems like a great friend, but not a very smart business person. I just really pray that Ja gets away from some of those people, gets a really good mentor, gets a really good coach, and cleans up. He's a spectacular talent, unbelievable talent.
You know what?
But for today, he's definitely a punchable face.
Yeah, he is. One thing
he and his entire entourage should all be punched.
One thing Keith said was he's still actually friends with the guys he used to run with back when he was growing up around the gang. But he told them early on, if you want to be friends, if you want to remain friends and you want to have all of the benefits of my friendship, now that I'm making all this money, we need to protect ourselves. We need to have constant security, never drive, never do anything stupid. And to this day, he's still friends with those guys because he was smart. He had business smarts and it worked. You don't have to turn your back on your friends. You just have to be smart about it. And Ja Morant is doing things the absolute dumbest way he can do them right
now. All right. Any other punches to be thrown? Anybody got a lasso?
I wish.
Yeah, I don't. No lasso this week. Oof. All right. How about a pour one out?
Yeah. So it's close to the sporting arena is the game of poker, which has become definitely a sport online, in person, the World Series of poker on television. When I first started learning poker, where I really wanted to learn the game, someone told me if I wanted to learn the game to go out and get this book called Super System. So I went out and got it, and it was by this guy named Doyle Brunson. And you read this about this legendary guy from Longview, Texas, who was larger than life. And in the early days of poker, when they first started the World Series of Poker, this guy won consecutive World Series of Poker main event titles, 1976 and 1977, on the same hand, which is the hand that's behind me on YouTube, which is the 10 deuce, which is, I don't think there's another poker hand in the game that's named after a person, but that's the Doyle Brunson hand. And both the stories of those hands are legendary, but the people who are really into poker, like they follow his hands, they followed his career. The main event is No Limit Hold'em at the World Series of Poker, but there's lots of other events. It goes on for a few weeks. And if you win one of the major events at the World Series of Poker, you get a World Series bracelet. So he's got 10 bracelets, which comes in second all time. And he's a legend. Everybody reads his book that wants to study the game. All the great poker players of today say there will never really be another one like him. His story is just incredible. He's going to be working for the Burroughs Company, and basically got there on day one. They said, come play cards with the group. And he basically won the equivalent of a month's salary, didn't show up for the second day of work and went to cards forever. But he's a great character in the game of poker, and he died yesterday. And I'm pouring one out for Texas Dolly, Doyle Brunson.
Good story. All right, buzzer beaters.
I got a couple.
Oh boy.
My back screen is a face-off between the Stars and Kraken tonight, Game 7 here in Dallas. Ottinger got pulled early in Game 6 after letting some loose goals in, but his record is 23-2-3 after a loss. The Stars have a really good record after winning Game 5. So I anticipate, hope, and the city expects, because they're the only team left right now in any kind of playoff shape, that the Stars win Game 7 tonight. I will not be at Game 7 though, because I will be at the Globe Life Park for the Rangers hosting the Bravos.
Well, who are you rooting for, Pope?
Wow.
He'll tell you after the game.
Are you wearing a Donna Kelsey jersey with both teams on either side?
I have one being made. I'm not sure it's going to be ready in time for the game. But, the Rangers are actually they have tied for the third best record in baseball with the Braves. It should be really interesting. Braves just came off getting swept by the Blue Jays. Rangers just swept the A's. And the Rangers are going tonight with a rookie, Cody Bradford. Nobody's ever heard of him because he's never pitched in the majors. Called to the big show this afternoon. Lefty, drafted in 2019. Should be fun night at the ballpark. We'll try to watch a little of the Stars game on YouTube, and hopefully a big night here in the Big D.
So Pope, if you had to wear a Braves or Rangers hat and then a Braves or Rangers jersey, if you were going to wear one of each, what would you wear on the hat?
So I will let you come into the abyss that is my brain. This morning,
that's where I unsubscribe.
I looked for hats to wear tonight. I do have a collection.
Abyss, a big empty space?
Pretty much.
Is that what an abyss is?
It's like the Globe Life Stadium.
Yeah, pretty much. And I found that I didn't have one Texas Rangers hat, that was something that I could wear. I have an old World Series hat from years and years ago. But I have 4 Braves hats. So I was like, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to wear a Braves hat to the game and cheer for the Rangers, because I'm cheering for the Rangers. And I think I've said this before. If the Rangers and Braves ever played in the World Series, I'd be for the Rangers. I just don't see that happening all this year. Who knows? Anything could happen. But no, I'm not wearing a Braves hat. In fact, I may have to buy a Rangers hat while I'm out there.
That's an automatic.
Oh, that's pretty much a guarantee.
Oh, yeah.
Just a couple T-shirts.
Yeah, maybe a vest.
Yeah,
right.
visor.
I've got a buzzer beater here. So with a 5th inning strikeout of Brewers center fielder Joey Weimer, this pitcher became just the 5th pitcher in Major League history to strike out 1,000 different players. In his 20th season, Zach Greinke joined that list.
Wow.
And the list is Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux, Roger Clemens, and now Zach Greinke.
Wow.
Think about that. That is
Crazy.
a really,
That is
I mean, those are
crazy list.
all Hall of Famers except for Clemens,
Clemens.
who of course isn't in because he was a cheater. And but that's pretty remarkable list. And gosh, it's I mean, 20 years of pitching at that level for Greinke is really remarkable. He may be one of the most underappreciated players in all of baseball, quite honestly. And you know, he does have he has social anxiety issues that he's had to deal with throughout his career. I will forever be very appreciative when the Astros and Dusty Baker pulled him out of the game 7 against the Nats because he was dealing and there was no way we were going to beat Greinke that night.
That's right. That's
And they
right.
pulled him out and we went on to win the series. But that's pretty impressive. So that's my buzzer beater for the day.
I've got a short one that will actually get in on before the buzzer. I learned on Sunday for the first time from one of the Milrod clan that God actually has an Instagram account. Unfortunately, however, he turns out he's a Celtics fan.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's true.
that's kind of a dig as well as a buzzer beater.
Well, I mean, the ultimate dig right there is Rooster putting up the Markel Starks background or Mark Fultz, whatever his name is, Fultz, right?
Yep.
For to show off the pick that could have been Tatum. That was savage, man. That was rough coming in today.
It's almost like you guys coordinated your backup there.
Almost like, but we didn't.
Well, we were talking about the process, whether tanking was worth it, the process.
Well, I have a buzzer beater, but I've got nothing left on sports, so I'm going to go personal. I am going to wish our co-host Bison a happy birthday on Wednesday. I only know this because it allows me to wish my son Jake a happy birthday. So happy birthday, Jake.
Happy birthday, Jake.
This is a big pinnacle for me this week, guys. I graduate my first kid from college. He's an ardent listener who listens to almost every episode. Congratulations, Zeke, on graduating. Although you have not majored in selecting quarterbacks for your fantasy football league, and Joe Burrow, you have done some other incredible academic accomplishments. Congrats on your graduation.
Congrats, Zeke.
Right.
Zeke.
Congratulations,
Congrats,
Zeke, and happy birthday, Bison.
Happy birthday, yeah.
And Jake.
And Jake.
My man, Jake, our TikTok
final
advisor.
Final shout out tonight to Nico at Jinx Proof Tattoos in Georgetown. If you need some ink done, check out Nico at Jinx Proof. Good dude.
Awesome.
All right. Anything else? You guys have a good week.
Have a good week.
All right. Get back here. Get back with us, Milk.